Hello, everybody, and welcome to Activating Activism episode 3. We have a very special guest coming today. She'll be here very shortly. I'll wait for her to arrive so she can introduce herself. Certainly better than I'll be able to anyway. So what we're trying to do here at Activating Activism, obviously part of Renewable English, is show people, young people across the world, what they can do to go out there and make a difference. The different things they can do, the different places they can go, the different avenues they can take. There's not just one road. There are very many roads to activism, very many different things that we can do to become activists. We can do them all in our own way. But it's great to have somebody who can guide us along the way, people who can give us advice and show us, just what to do, just how to do it. So I'm going to ask if she would like to come and join now. Be here very shortly. I can see her waiting in the wings. There we go. Hello.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. I've waited for you to come and arrive. Something I've been doing recently with my interviews is I used to always give an introduction for the person who was coming in, and I found that I quite often, I don't know, maybe find something that I thought was important and talk about that while introducing them, when really the best person to introduce someone when they're coming on is themselves, because you certainly know a lot more about you than I do. So I'm going to give the floor to you and let you introduce yourself, if you would be so kind.
Of course. So I'm Emily. I'm a 21-year-old climate activist based in England. I started off focusing on plastic, and it's still a very big interest for me in plastic pollution. But it's now more of the interconnectedness of all things, to quote Dirk Gently, because that's what I've been watching. So yes.
It is, it's something I've noticed, I mean, particularly amongst, well, I think all activists, to be honest. I'm not just going to talk about young activists, because, there are older people who are activists too. We're not all rubbish. A lot of us are quite rubbish, but not all of us. But it often is, I mean, I can see by your Instagram name that it clearly started with plastic. And also with Kids Against Plastic, Amy and Ella, that it started as like a plastic thing. And, as we said there is still a huge plastic focus with their work as well. But it's stretched out way beyond that. I mean, it's the same with my daughter. She's 8. And, it started with kind of litter picks and going out and seeing, we know it's the symptom. We shouldn't be curing, we shouldn't be working on the symptoms and so on and so forth. We need to be getting to the root of the issue. But it is this whole activating activism side of things. There is often kind of like that one spark that starts it all. And then, it is, as you mentioned, the interconnectivity of it. It isn't just being, I'm sure I know you're not just a climate activist, but there are very few people nowadays. I almost said it in Spanish then. Hoy en día is how you say nowadays. Particularly young people that are solely climate activists. It's very rare to see it, because it's usually people like yourself who are kind of more awake to general social justice issues as well, and completely aware of these, other issues around the world. But what I'd like to start with is the start, and what woke you up to the climate crisis, and how old were you?
Well, I think I've always been aware of it. I can't ever remember a time of not knowing about the climate crisis and not being conscious of the crisis and what we need to do. But it's only within the last 2 or 3 years, I'd say, that it's really hit me how immediate it is, and how little time we've got. But yeah, I've grown up knowing about it. We were taught it in school, but we were also a very climate focused family, environmentally conscious family. So like we wouldn't use the car as much as like other parents or other families. Like, you know, our friends would drive around to like each other's houses. It's like, well, no, they're around the corner. We'll walk, we'll cycle, we'll recycle our plastic. We won't use as much plastic. We'll buy plastic free where we can. That sort of thing. So I've always been aware of it, but yeah, it's only really recently that I've realised the immediacy of it and how like we really need to act like now if we're gonna try and stall this in its tracks.
Yeah, I think I'm fairly similar in that respect. That I mean, I was fairly climate aware as a child. You know, I've not been a child for quite a long time now. But you know, again, it was with my family. You know, growing up, we were conscious of, you know, not wasting and not overusing and not over consuming. And when I was younger, we did hear about, you know, the greenhouse effect. You know, that was talked about, and you know, we've known about climate change for a great number of years. It's just, you know, it's been kind of ignored and put on the, I don't want to say back burner because that's just a poor use of words, but it's been kind of ignored until that, you know, we are feeling it. We're clearly feeling it. You know, I can tell you right now, I am uncomfortably hot. I should not be wearing this hat. This was a poor choice of headwear for this interview. It's about 36 degrees here today, which is cool considering the weather we had last week. It was, you know, 46, 47 last week. But yeah, so I've always been kind of aware of it. But it has been very recently, and like yourself, I now look at my daughter, who is she's only 8, but it's every day now. Like there was a fire out the back of our house on her birthday about a month or so back, and because you know the land is completely dry, we live in the countryside, and you know every day, you know, her friends were on their way back from Portugal the other day. They got stuck because there was a fire there. Like. These are things that are happening every single day in different places. And if it's not a fire, it's a flood. So it is the immediacy of it that's it's stark and it's scary. So what kind of led you towards, you know, activism and striking and that kind of thing?
So the activism journey in itself started, like I said, with the plastic. And because that was where my focus was really, and just I was fed up with people not knowing about it and being like ignorant, whether that was like willfully or otherwise. So I was like, right, I'm gonna do something about this. I'm gonna make a page where I can talk to people and like educate them to like the magnitude of the crisis and how easy it is to change things. So that's where that started really. And then it was this about this time last year I started getting more into the climate side and kind of researching that. I've read a lot around it, like as many books as I can get my hands on, keep reading them. And yeah, it was just like, I can't believe we're in this situation. I can't just sit here and do nothing in this situation that we're in. I need to do something. So I thought I would join in solidarity with Fridays for Future and start striking, which I have more or less continued since December when I started. So.
Oh, fantastic. Do you have plans for are you going anywhere special for the 24th of September this year to go on any kind of, to go on a strike this year, or are you going to do it in your local area, or do you have anywhere particular you're going to go?
That is very much still in planning, so I'm not sure yet. We're still
Excellent
working
news.
that one out.
Yeah. That's another thing that, for me, I was very lucky. I have very open-minded, very kind of socialist parents who have always been open to everything. And I remember like some of my fondest memories of a child when I was 6 or 7. We would go along to, it was back in the the late 80s, early 90s, there were a lot of strikes for like equality for miners because they were closing mines, which I know coal mines not great for the environment, but also at the time there were people's only source of income, and we were striking for the miners as opposed to the mines, obviously, and that moment of activism, and I remember back in when there was the huge strike against the second war in Iraq, just being in those moments, being surrounded by so many like-minded people, seeing the power of collective action. I don't know. It's a unique feeling, and it's one that I think everybody should experience. And the more people that do experience it, the better it will be. And that leads me nicely on to the next question. It's almost like I prepared that or something. I actually hadn't. It was just lucky. How can we collectively make a difference?
I think this is quite a tricky question because I think historically the onus has been on the individual to be like, yeah, okay, you're the ones that need to make the change. It's individuals that's, you go make change. And I think as a society, we've now realised like, no, that is not the case. It's big business, it's governments, it's like the big polluters. They're the ones that need to actually make the change, because the time for individual change, although it's still like really critical, really important, but the time for individual change has passed. We need like big change, we need system change, we need concrete action. So I think collectively, the best way we can make change is through like lobbying these big businesses, governments, etc., to make them, force them to make the change, because they're the ones that really have the power to reverse where we are. Because like as consumers, you can do a certain amount, but at the same time, you can't do everything. You can't stop them from burning coal, even if you switch your suppliers. You can't stop them from producing new plastic, even if you reduce your plastic intake. So it's now down to the producers, it's down to the big business, it's down to government to make the change, not us. So we just need to keep pressuring them, keep lobbying them, and force them to make the change.
Yeah, and I couldn't agree more with the. I do think individual action is important, because within yourself, when you're doing that, it kind of pushes you more to kind of ask for bigger action as well. But I was looking at. I've got a live class with Pearson Speak Up for Sustainability next Friday, and this session's all about water waste. And it was just, all of the tips that we have are generally on like a personal level. Saying, don't turn the tap off when you brush your teeth, which you absolutely should. You absolutely should, 100%. Like, it's a stupid waste of water if you don't. But that's like about 19 litres of water that you're going to be wasting there. Whereas it's up to 1,000 litres of water for 1 litre of cow milk. So that's a lot of teeth brushings that you're going to have to do to save up to that 1 litre of cow milk. So yeah, I think it is putting pressure on that and on the big companies and lobbying and sending letters to your MPs and doing what you can and keeping on with that pressure. And it is a good idea to boycott these big companies. It's a great idea to boycott these companies. And I know particularly now fast fashion is something that really, I don't want to use the words I'm going to use because they're not very nice words. I'm not a huge fan of fast fashion. But with it coming around to kind of the new school year, a lot of people have to buy clothes for their kids to go to school and stuff like that. And particularly in Spain, where there aren't school uniforms, people will go to Primark, Decathlon, and buy the cheapest things that they're going to get destroyed anyway, because, the kids are going to grow and so on. So the thing I like to point out to a lot of people is, yes, you are still going to make you're going to do a lot of things that are not good for the environment. Like, just keep your focus on what you definitely can do. Look for alternatives, look for secondhand. If you can't find it, and if you can't avoid stuff, then don't beat yourself up about these small things, but do go out and try and do big things as well. Inaya, who is an incredible young lady, by the way, absolutely wonderful person, who sent a message here. There are a lot of easy things like turning the tap off you can do, stop plastic and water waste and much more. Inaya is brilliant. I know her from the Kids Against Plastic Club. She's absolutely fantastic. The next question. Sorry, I get sidetracked quite a lot. I'm very passionate about these things, as you may or may not realise. So the recent IPCC report was alarming, but it was unsurprising. What do you think now I'm going to do this in inverted commas, what do you think our leaders will do in terms of real change versus long-time targets that none of them have any particular interest in reaching?
Yeah, this is again another hard one, because you want to be like, yeah, it was the one thing, like, when I saw it, I was like, yeah, okay, this is horrible, this is like devastating but unsurprising. But I also found it quite hopeful, because I was like, this is so damning, they can't ignore it. There was so much hype about it. Like, the BBC literally just live streamed the press conference of the release of the report, and I was like, wow, I don't remember this. And then literally within like a few days, it all died down again. And so it's like, yeah, the IPCC report was awful, but I can't see that our leaders are going to make any rapid change, even though, like, here in the UK, we're obviously, like, it's a really big year for us in terms of like being climate leaders, which we supposedly are, because we hosted G7, we're hosting COP26. So we're like, it's a big year for us to be like, yes, look at all the amazing things we're doing, but at the same time they're like giving the go ahead on the Cambo oil field, potentially opening the Cumbria coal mine, and it's like, it's so contradictory. So I'd love to say that yes, I think they will like implement action, but at the same time, given what we've seen in the past and given what the current political climate is, I can't see it happening rapidly, which is why we need to keep on the pressure, keep fighting, keep demanding for change, because that's how it will happen.
What I really want to see, and this is something I've spoken to a lot of, I've spoken to a lot of youth activists, I've spoken to a lot of experts over the past year or so. I get so upset and frustrated about net zero 2030. When I hear that phrase, it makes me want to like punch walls. It makes me so angry. What I want to know is what we're going to do for, I don't know, September 2021. What's your target for then? And if it's a small, tiny little step that isn't going to make a huge difference, that's all good. But I want to see that you've got something set in for then, not saying everything for 2030, because like with the SDGs, I absolutely love the idea of the Sustainable Development Goals. I love the premise behind them and focusing on these different areas. But they were written 6 years ago now. That's over a third of the way into their target. So they'd set a 15-year target. We're 6 years into that now. How close are we to zero poverty for everyone, everywhere? We're not that close, I'm afraid. We're not even... Poverty has decreased. Fair enough. I was talking to my daughter the other day about this on the way to her friend's house. And we figured out that in total with, mortgage, electricity bills, this, that, the other, food, our lives, we are incredibly privileged, incredibly lucky, but they cost around 40 euros a day, our life, like our minimum. And then we look at extreme poverty is people who earn under $1.73 a day, is it? And you just think, how is that possible? But again, I've gone off track, and it is these targets that are set so far in the future that they really upset me. And I think what we need to see are shorter term targets as to what we're going to achieve in the future, because you can't set something for 10 years' time and then not get there and then be like, well, we tried. You didn't. You did
Yeah.
literally, in fact, you did less than nothing, because had you done nothing, things wouldn't be getting worse. But so you did
Hmm.
less than nothing. You did the opposite. You did something, but the opposite. Anyway, again, I'm getting ranty, and it's something I need to stop doing. I had a big discussion with somebody today, and it was one of those people that's like their mind isn't going to change. It was
Hmm.
not about the climate; it was about something else. But I won't get into that now because you know you're going to have to be in bed in the next 10 hours, and I could keep going. Um, Something that really drew my attention to kind of your page when I was, when I've been looking around. I've been following you for quite a while now, actually. You and a number of other young activists. That sounds stalky. It's not stalky. I've been following you in an Instagram way in that I admire your work. Um, that's terrible. That was terrible. What I want to say is something about your art. I really like your art, and you are super talented.
Thank you.
You are really a very talented artist. How do you kind of use that as an outlet?
It's it's kind of a twofold thing for me. So being creative, because I don't just draw, I don't just paint, I do a great number of creative things. It's a really good kind of distraction. It's like I can sit there, put TV on, and sit and draw, paint, crochet, whatever I want to do. And it's really good for just, bringing you back to the moment, which is so important for our mental health, like in the times that we're in, because being an activist is really stressful, it's really hard work. Um, and you're exposed to so much like negativity all the time in like the news, um, in just the fact that you're fighting the climate crisis that couldn't be much more negative. So it's really good for that. It's like it's a creative outlet, so you can just forget everything and distract. But also, it's a really good way to like educate people as well. Um, so the latest series of work that I did um, was the portraits of my fellow youth activists, um, some of which I included uh, like recorded voice interviews and then created a video from that. So like each one kind of tells a story of their activism, of them, of why they're in, like why they're doing this, um, and what's so important, like why it's so important that we fight it, that we're working to fight it. Um, so like for me, I like being able to use what I'm good at, using my art to make people more interested and to draw people in and to make it a kind of a more appealing like thing to do, because I think at the end of the day people, they want to be interested in whatever they're fighting for or protesting against. So yeah, I think using it to kind of draw people in is really positive and really useful actually. Um, and yeah, that's kind of why I like to do it.
It's really good. I didn't mean to say it's lovely. Then it's fantastic. I was
Thank
looking through the
you.
series of portraits recently, and I was like, that is so good. I can't even draw a stick, man. Um, my art falls in other areas. My art falls in creating learning materials for people and stuff like that. I guess, I have other outlets, but certainly drawing and painting and crochet. I'm not great. About as far as I can go with a needle, I can sew buttons on, and I can keep my clothes so they're not falling apart, which is something I really, I've worked hard on recently. Um, oh, thank you very much, Eli. In fact, talking of educational materials, I just watched what a brilliant video he's done for DLA, Digital Learning Associates. Well, they've used one of his videos. It's amazing. So, much like many other young activists, you are incredibly aware of other social justice issues. I mentioned that earlier. So I'd like to know, what else are you fighting for?
I think fighting for climate justice means fighting for all justice, because the climate crisis isn't just about the climate, it's a social thing. Um, So you can't have climate justice without having social justice, racial justice, LGBT plus justice. You have to, fight for everything, be aware of everything, make sure that you're considering everyone, because you can't fight against fast fashion for the planet, but not consider the workers and the people who are being exploited, and also the planet at the same time. So you have to take everything into account, and so you end up fighting every corner at the same time. But it's so eye-opening. There are so many things that I now am aware of that I was never aware of before I started fighting for climate justice. I think it's made me
You've frozen there.
more rounded person. I don't know if I got lost then or not.
No. You froze for a second right before you said a much more rounded person, but it was only for a second there. I couldn't agree more. Now, when I was looking at the second series of Renewable English, so the first one that I did was all about attaching. So each unit of an English textbook, there starts with the home, and then it goes on to the family, and then it talks about fashion and travel and transport, and it goes all the way through. And then there's one unit that's all about climate change, which is, everything's shit, we're all going to die. Which is something I absolutely hated, because as a teacher, students would get to that page and be like, oh, don't want to do this. So I tried to kind of find a way to integrate every single lesson we did to the environment. And then from that, I kind of saw a lot of things cropping up. So when it came around to the second series, I decided to base it on each one of the SDGs. The premise behind each one of the SDGs, the idea of no poverty, the idea of no hunger. And yet, as I was going through, it's that interconnectivity of so many of them, So I'm going to go through each lesson. I'll be teaching one SDG per lesson. But the fact is, you can't teach no poverty without teaching no hunger. These things can't. They can't stand separately, because they are interlinked, they are intertwined, and it's something that has been brilliant for me, like learning about this. As I said, I've always been sort of kind of climate aware, but the more I've researched and got into it, it has opened my eyes to all of these other issues. Sometimes it can be overwhelming, but like you say, I think we do need to kind of, fight that corner for other people. This discussion I was having today was with a relative, and he was, so we live in this part of Spain. It's not particularly ethnically diverse. The LGBTQ plus side of things isn't particularly out there. There's an awareness, there's a tolerance, but it's a tolerance rather than anything else, which for me is, it's horrible. And the argument was, he was saying that there was too much diversity in television now, saying it's too much, it's not real for society. And I was like, no, sorry. It is real for society, and it's something that needs to be normalised. It's something that needs to be shown to young people across the world that this is an okay thing to do. This is fine. This is normal. This is normal. End of story. And yeah, it got into a debate about feminism and how. And yeah, he was confused over the meaning of feminism, saying that feminists were radicals just like misogynists. And I was like, it's not the same thing. You're so confused. You're supposed to be educated. And me and my wife were kind of there, like both of us raging. And I was like, this actually isn't getting us anywhere. It was kind of cathartic to get it out. But again, it's that's, I don't think it changes mine particularly. And there are people that it's not going to change people's minds. But there are things that need to be said, and people need to learn about these different areas. And when it comes to learning, now, you are a young person. You have recently gone through the wonderful education system there is out there. You mentioned you learned about climate change at school, but what do you think needs to change at school? What do you think needs to happen? For me, the biggest thing is old people need to listen to young people a lot more. But what else can we change?
Definitely the listening thing that needs to massively change. I think the information that's available to students in school and that is taught to students, not just available to them, that needs to be much more concrete, much more available, much more pushed much more. Like having a specific climate class, or justice class, something like that, where you learn all about like the different injustices, like be it climate, racial, LGBT, whatever. And I think it's just a societal tolerance and societal acceptance, and it needs to happen really soon because we seem to be slipping the other way at times, which is slightly scary. Like you look at what's going on in the news and you think this seems to be going the complete opposite direction to where we're meant to be at the moment. So I think, yeah, pushing for acceptance, for knowledge, for understanding to be taught from the word go in schools, not just to be taught in like high school science or geography classes. I think it needs to be taught from the very beginning, and I think that would make a huge difference.
Something that's happened here in Spain, which seems great. I say it seems great because I don't know how it's going to kind of roll out. They've put in a new law in schools that by the end of primary school, students need to be more environmentally aware. They need to know of environmentally safe habits and stuff like that, and they need to know about the connection of local and global issues. Now, this is a new law that's just been written in here in Spain. In fact, I've written a blog about it, which will be released in September to coincide with the new school year. So if anybody wants to read that, I mean, it's these kind of things that seem like they're making a positive step forward. It seems like it's going to be a good thing. And I was speaking to Zakia from Swap It Up last week, and what she mentioned again was like cross-curricular talk of these climate issues, of these issues, looking at history, that, the things that maybe we did wrong in the past, but also the things we did right in the past. Like we went to the supermarkets in the 50s, there wasn't plastic everywhere,
Yeah.
We didn't need to have things wrapped in plastic that didn't need to be wrapped in plastic, so we didn't. Yes, Jesse's hat, I think I said, that sounds fantastic. Don't you think parents need educating too? I absolutely think parents need educating too. If there's one person that I will listen to when they come home from school with something to talk about, is my daughter. So if, I'm very interested in what she's learning at school, which parent isn't. So if she comes back with this new information, I'll listen to it from her. So I think that helps. If the kids are being educated, that will help parents being educated as well, in my opinion.
Definitely.
So yeah, that is more or less that. I've taken up more than half an hour of your time. I'm pretty sure I promised you I'd only be 15 minutes, but sometimes I talk a lot. And you had loads of things that I just wanted to learn about from you. And yeah, so a big thank you to you. And I'll say this to most of the youth activists I speak to, not only for coming on today, but thank you for everything you're doing for the planet in general. Not just the planet itself, but for the people. And yeah, thank you for all of your hard work. Please continue to do so. Continue with your art. If you're ever bored and you want to paint a picture of this guy, feel free. It's fine. I won't be offended if you do a caricature, with a massive nose, a really bald head and a stupid beard. It's all good. I can laugh at myself. So yeah, it's been a pleasure. It's been really nice to meet you, like properly, not just in a followy way, not stalky, followy. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for all you do as well.
I will see you around the internets.
Yeah. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.